We all know about Trump being arrested in his mugshot. We all know about the little tit-for-tat battles going on in the Republican debates. We all know about Putin arresting Navalny. Did you know politics and documentaries seem to go hand in hand? For which we'll be talking about that. This is Skinny E Media, and here we have our usual Bobatron, Rob Bavister.
Hello, one and all.
Absolutely there. If it seems like I'm in a bit of a quiet mood, I am. I just have a lot of things going on in my life that, But on the positive side, I got to see Rob Bavister in person in his hometown, and got to see a few films with him and discuss a few interesting tidbits about censorship, even though it does appear to our fans why we haven't done a podcast in a while. That's the reason why. Work, meeting him in person, nothing else. But yeah, let's get started really. Get down on the skinny. Ebert. Your experience, as always, we'll start your experience just in general with documentaries, political or not political ones.
Well, we go by just documentaries in general. That's going to be going back quite some time. I mean, a show like Wildlife on One is technically a documentary when you think about it. So I've been watching those ever since I was far back as I can remember, which could just be 2 weeks ago now I think about it. But no, when I was way too young to know what my dick was for, I was basically watching documentaries, mostly about wildlife or about history or stuff like that. In terms of political documentaries or feature-length movie documentaries, the first one, and the one who got me into it, obviously it'd be through Michael Moore, with the first one being Bowling for Columbine, which I watched during my first year at uni multiple times.
Well, it probably led to some extent your foundation of your political ideology. For anyone who isn't in the know, Rob is he's not MAGA, he's not right wing, he's not a Putinist.
No, I'm very, very left wing. I'm pretty. In fact, I know as I've got older, I've just swung further and further to left. I'm practically an anarchist now. At least in principle, anyway. What was I going with? And yeah, Michael Moore did heavily influence my political beliefs. Although I will not going to lie, most of it was just I was mostly drawn to his original documentary just for my anti-American sentiment. Although I did have other left-wing views other than that beforehand. But at the time of watching Bolivar Columbine, it was quite refreshing because I saw it's like, oh, an American who's not a complete flag-waving jingoist who thinks their country is the greatest in the world, who does realize, hey, you know what? It's not normal to have this much gun violence. It's not normal to have this many guns in our society. Well, stuff like that, basically. Not too. Yeah, and of course, it was 2004 when I first watched it, so I bought a few of his books later on, and of course, later that year, me and my mum went to the cinema to see Fahrenheit 9/11.
I think you told me about this on a side conversation, and she said something about the bias of the work itself.
Yeah,
That's quite a strange film to see on the big screen.
Yeah. Also that year, I did see Super Size Me on the big screen as well, so that was good fun. And I haven't really watched a lot of documentaries on the big screen since then. I don't know if I've seen them on the big screen since then, but I have been watching. I mean, just recently I rewatched his Capitalism: A Love Story. You forget how long this can go on for, backing on for, because it's 2 hours. It doesn't feel like a documentary needs to be that long. I've also seen Sicko and yeah, his Fahrenheit 11/9, which talks about Trump. You know, I've seen quite a few documentaries. I've even got Religious in my DVD collection by Bill Maher.
I actually noticed that on the shelf. I even was saying out loud, I wouldn't tell my mother or my mother or my grandmother I watched this because I remember seeing it. I got it on Love Film one of the times, and it's quite cutthroat, really. No matter what you think about Bill Maher, who's more or less been trying to be Ben Shapiro light, he he certainly
He's
is
changed.
very proudly atheist,
He certainly
criticizing
is.
organized religion whenever he can. Um, as far as my experiences are concerned, probably the same as you, really. Even though I'm younger, it was Michael Moore, but Morgan Spurlock probably was sort of my little gateway into documentaries themselves because it was so silly and outrageous, especially when I saw the poster for it. Because even though I was older than 12, I mean I could see 12A films, but that film for some reason just wasn't playing in my area, and it did bother me because I would have loved to have seen a movie like that on the big screen. It's a bit sad to say, really, but the first documentary film I saw must have been March of the Penguins or Inconvenient Truth. One of those films. I know Inconvenient Truth has quite a reputation because that was at the height of the whole global warming way about viewing the world, which still lingers to this day. But I'm seeing a lot more sort of greenwashing and what they like to call eco neoliberalism, which it's cool to seem like you're driving an electric car, but I'm sure there's something underneath the surface that we don't know about. And then March of the Penguins, I saw that because it was a documentary, and was like curious, what does a U film with animals being filmed by French people look like? So there you go. I know it's a bit unusual, really. Inconvenient Truth was a U certificate, but it's certainly
What's
not aimed at children.
Yeah, but what's going to be in there that could possibly be like that could irk for BBFC? I mean, I'm guessing being made. I haven't actually seen it, so I can't really comment. But I'm guessing if it's been made by Al Gore, who's a politician, he's going to keep his mouth clean and everything. He's not going to show any. There's nothing particularly violent or anything gratuitous in there. So yeah, when you think about it, it's kind of makes a bit of sense.
Oh no, it's fine at you. I mean, it's the sort of thing you can watch on daytime TV or in school. It's just, it's always a bit of a curiosity point whenever I do see use and PG certificate works that aren't marketed to children or deal with themes that 4 and 5 year olds probably would find kind of boring. But as they get older and more conscious of the world, you learn to respect it a little bit more. And most of my favorite documentaries generally are sort of UPG level at best. I mean, well, the ones that I was quite familiar with, like A Crude Awakening, that was PG. That was about the oil crisis and too much reliance on fossil fuels. Okay, I'm lost in a bit of a tangent right here. My mind's on too
So
much stuff. But yes, but as I got older, Walter Bashir, which, yes, it is an animation, and it may not on the surface look like it's a documentary, but it actually is a testimony of the people that he used to know during his IDF years, and how it was like in the Shabra Satila massacre and fighting a war against the Bashir regime in Lebanon. It's a very political animation. It only got an 18 certificate, like I said before, because of a sex scene. Ugh.
did you say it was it like a sexual assault scene or something?
Nope, they were playing a porno video on the TV, and you actually see cartoon penetration, penis going up, up and up and up and up inside the woman's coochie. I was like, wow, I didn't know you could show that. And weirdly enough, despite the explicit content, it got an R rating in the US, uncut, which made me very happy. And in Canada, they actually were more strict about it than the Americans, passing it restricted, 18 plus.
Yeah, their R1. Hmm. Hmm. That does make me raise things. You'd think if like us and the Canadians gave it our equivalent to the NC-17 rating, you'd think the Americans and the MPAA they would do that as well. You'd think like, well, they tend to be more uppity about that kind of stuff.
One
I don't
would
know, mate.
think, but actually, no, not even the case. They must have let it slip on by just this instance because of the historical or political merit there have been instances where they've let certain stuff pass because of supposed merits. I mean, that's how you get films like Saving Private Ryan and even the Alfred Kinsey film getting R ratings, despite having the sort of material that probably under other circumstances probably would have pushed it to NC-17 level. But I'm just happy.
There was one war documentary film. I can't remember what it's called now, but
They shall not.
Pardon?
They shall not grow old.
No, I don't know if it's that. It's about the Iraq War and everything. Anyway, it got a PG-13 rating. In spite of that, there's like the F-bomb is dropped over 30 times in the movie, and the only reason they did was because just because of its patriotic content. That is so
Oh, I know which one. It's Gunner Palace.
Yeah, that's it. Gunner Palace.
The only film I'm aware of that has the PG-13 that has more than 2 uses outside the Hip Hop Project. They were re-rated on appeal on really exceptional circumstances. I've never seen this sort of thing being repeated since those 2 films came out.
Yeah,
so,
that's
more
good.
power to them.
It does seem a little bit silly though. If I could get like it appeared on high impact classifications lists of films that are rated PG-13 in America but 15 in Britain, as a means of saying who got it right and who got it wrong and everything. And this one, they definitely said no, BBFC got that right. There's no way this could, if not for its uber patriotic content, it could get away with a PG-13. It would have been an R. I mean, hell, both Bowling for Columbine and Fahrenheit 9/11 were given R ratings, even though Bowling for Columbine only says fuck twice, I think. So yeah, much of that said, capitalism. I was watching Capitalism: A Love Story, and like I said, I think that's got like 3 F-bombs in, and of course, I can't remember if that's the one that got rated R, or if it was Sicko that got rated R, in spite of it being rated 12A over here.
Capitalism was the one that was given an R range just because of free use of fuck, which in my opinion sounds pretty stupid. So I remember seeing it at the cinema. I thought, really? I'm sure there's a lot of young people that can certainly get a lot out of this. I know Where to Invade Next, the film that he did afterwards. They tried to appeal that for a PG-13 movie, was rejected. I think there was a little bit more going on that one than there was in Capitalism. There was scenes of police violence, there was nudity, and
Which
more
one
use
were
of
you
the
on?
F word.
Which film are you on about now? Because Sicko was done beforehand, wasn't it?
Yes, Sicko, then Capitalism, and then Where to Invade Next, which is a film that he did that almost no one saw, but he goes to European countries and even Rwanda to see how they're doing it better than the US. Weirdly enough, the UK does not appear in this documentary, which gives me a sense of happiness because, oh, yeah. Being bullied for being American, and I'm sure to some extent being British, is no fun.
Well, it doesn't exactly have all. There's a few downsides to it, yes. But yeah, turns out that one was rated 15 over here as well. Where was I? I don't know what I was talking about. I just, I haven't seen that one, so I can't really comment too much on it. So yeah, but yeah, that one was rated 15 and alongside the R in America. So yeah, no differences between this side of it, either side of the Atlantic.
Oh no, I can only imagine. Oh. But yes, I think some of it's probably political censorship because there was a popular documentary called Bully that had to go back and forth with the censors a lot. They done a PG-13 edit of it to remove all but 2 F words. It was originally rated R because of the language. The uncut version was ultimately unrated. and just back and forth, and it led to quite a bit of controversy. And parents groups even filed petitions to MPA, and even some celebrities like Ellen DeGeneres said young people should watch this film, warning about the consequences of bullying to young people. But you're restricting it to an audience that probably could benefit from it. And you get that quite a lot, particularly with films that have merit. And it's not just documentaries, but social dramas. I'm sure if Sound of Freedom was rated R, you probably would get some MAGA people complaining about, oh, you can't let the kids see. That's what happened with the abortion drama Unplanned. Now, I know those are fiction films, but going back to bullying, uh, it does appear to me that MPA doesn't quite know how to handle nuance very well.
Well, that's true. Well, as I've said, it probably came down harder on those Michael Moore documentaries because Michael Moore has a reputation for being, well, in America, for being unpatriotic. And to be honest, when I first encountered him, I actually thought that was the case. I actually thought he actually was like did actually hate his country and everything. So as someone who held anti-American sentiments, I thought I lapped it up. Of course, he doesn't actually. It's just, you know, when you truly love something, you point out its flaws to help it grow. But I mean, back on point, that Gunner's Palace, clearly they just came because that was just patriotism and emotion, yeah, military industrial complex chain yanking and everything. So yeah, but
Well, actually, from
they
what I
just
was told, the film actually has a bit more of a nuanced portrayal of it. It's not a pro-war, anti-war. Because on the interview that he did with Kirby Dick for This Film's Not Yet Rated, one of the great masterpieces, which we'll talk about in a moment. I'm surprised I didn't even mention that earlier on. Oh God, sorry. He did say we didn't want to impose a particular agenda on the film itself. This is paraphrasing. And he goes to highlight certain clips and images from atrocities like the Vietnam War with a naked child running out of the street because of napalm. And I think that scene where a man holds a gun to someone's head, going to illustrate, is it PG? Is it PG-13? Is it R? You can't necessarily quantify reality. And he was a bit worried that the PG-13 appeal would be rejected, but they approved it. They said, I
yeah.
had the last laugh. So, yeah, that says a lot, really. And then, obviously, we can't forget about talking the elephant in the room here. This film is not
What?
yet rated.
Oh yeah, that one. I did watch that once, not too long ago, to get idea. Of course, that's more that one has a more specific appeal to Americans because those outside of America, it doesn't really mean much because they don't deal. They have their own ratings boards, not the MPAA. And of course, yeah, it does give some weird insights, like how they ratings board, the MPAA do act differently to other film countries' ratings boards. First of all, like how cloak and dagger they are. Like they don't let people know who's rating the movies and everything. Whereas the BBFC have a very forthcoming with who's working for them, who's doing what, one and the other, and have their annual reports released every year, and just tell everyone what's going on. But also, like the MPA won't always tell a film distributor what it is they need to cut to get the rating they want, whereas the BBFC and I'm guessing most other ratings boards do, or will simply tell, if it's possible, of course, will tell the distributor what it is specifically they need to cut out in order to get a rating that they want.
Well, it does go back to when they were saying on the documentary, oh, we're not a censorship organization. We're not allowed to tell you what you can or cannot cut out. You just have to figure it out for yourself, which doesn't really help out anything. That leaves people sort of in a bind.
Not even
Either,
that. Sorry to interrupt, but it doesn't make sense when you think about it. If you just telling them what if just telling them what they would need to cut out if they want to get a lower rating, but you're still willing to let it pass uncut with a higher rating, then that's not censorship because you're still giving them the option of releasing it uncut. No, it's only when you're saying, oh, you have to cut this and this out if you want it released at all, that's when it's censorship. But with all this, it's like, well, not. It's just basically edit. It's not cuts so much. It's more edits and everything to help it get a wider release or help it get a wider audience.
Exactly, which more or less, BBFC, MPA are more or less classifiers, not censors, even though for a long time, and even now, we do like to conflate the two, but classification is just categorizing a particular film based on a whole set of issues, and it gets a particular rating. It's a more criteria, context heavy than censoring, which is a bit more sort of straight cut and forth. You cannot show gay sex. You cannot say this word. Da 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 da. But I don't know. It's too much debate to go on there. But all I can tell you is this film is not yet rated. Was past 18 for the strong sex, which, in all fairness, is not really surprising because it does depict clips from X and NC-17 films and R films that have quite shocking material. But there was some debate. I think that was like an APCV or Video Advisory Council meeting whether to decide to pass this at 15. They had this same conversation with Walter Bashir, but they all decided to go with the 18 just to be on the more safer side. I think with Walter Bashir, that was more or less because that sort of sexual content was more or less unprecedented at 15. But, I mean, most 15, 16-year-olds have seen cartoon porn one way or another. I have, in the form of anime.
Again, it's all on the internet now, so, I mean, it's kind of redundant. I mean, even James Furman admitted that when he realized the internet was coming about, he realized people can just watch the thing online where completely uncut. He almost asked what was the point in doing what they were doing. It's like, good God, if he can get it, I mean.
Well, he did get in a bit of trouble with his higher-ups for trying to slip in hardcore pornography at the R18 level, which at the time was not permitted under law and several other things. But ultimately, when Robin Duvall came along and they put the guidelines, they chilled out. But I know that's a bit off topic, but take that as you will. Did I lose you?
Well, yeah. No, sorry. I was just phasing out. Yeah, I do get what you mean. I mean, let's face it. Well, we can't just start talking about Furman again because we're always talking about him. And if we start talking about him, it's going to descend into absolute expletive, obscenity-driven chaos. So, I mean, let's.
Well, we did see a documentary of Mary Whitehouse at your place. I thought that was hilarious and a little bit unsettling. That one was not rated by BBFC. That was BBC only production, but obviously with BBC and all British stations, they have to put that with strong language and scenes of a sexual nature from the start, and it has that northern person doing the voiceover warning you what is in this film or documentary.
Yeah, well, I mean, what was I going to mean? Yeah, well, we're talking about Mary Whitehouse. You're probably going to start talking about the kind of things she was railing against. And while a lot of what she was railing against is going to be quite tame by today's standards, obviously that was the more naive times of the world, and yeah, those things were slightly more shocking. I mean, we're talking about a woman who got outraged by hearing the words knickers on TV. I mean, could you imagine such a thing nowadays?
Not at all. I mean, you can even show people in bras and bikinis at you.
Yeah, well, they do say, one of the things they say about nowadays, it is becoming harder to be more shocking and outrageous and everything. I mean, as a metalhead, I mean, some people were saying on this Reddit chat when we said, dude, it's not 1980. No one's shocked and outraged by metal music anymore. granted, melt's a different animal to what it was back then, but that's anyway. Getting off topic. Yeah, but yeah, we did watch that documentary, and if we're talking about documentaries been watching on online, I'm always embarrassed to talk about this, but during my very early 20s, oh pardon me, I did go through a sort of conspiracy theorist 9/11 truther phase. Don't worry, I ended it by the time I was 22, or definitely by the time I was 23. And oh god, I watched a lot of Alex Jones documentaries online.
Police State Takeover.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'm familiar with a lot of his work.
Along with Loose Change.
Look, I won't hold you against it really, because I did listen to some Alex Jones myself at one point in time. Well, if you were left wing in the 2000s, it's probably because you were anti-war. But as we've seen his true colours, Alex Jones is more or less a right-wing puppet and shield for Trump, and probably Putin as well, even though he's probably in denial of this. And I just think it happens to everyone. Russell Brand, he sold himself out. Tulsi Gabbard sold herself out. Piers Morgan's always been reactionary, but I think he's just taking it too far these days. But yes, I'm rambling on there. But yes, a lot of the documentaries that he did, he positioned them in ways where it seemed like this is what the mainstream media doesn't want you to see, saying it would be censored or banned. And they even try propelling this sort of information. Because I've seen a few ads of his, prison planner, InfoWars, stuff that he would promote on the late night hours of telly or in the early morning. It would say it contains some material which may be subversive or offensive to some viewers, which I thought was clever marketing, and I've used that even to my advantage, although on a politically level, certainly not the same as him.
I mean, obviously by the time Obama came in, of course, it was pretty obvious that like Alex Jones was going to start like bitching, raging against Obama, and he was going to start like siding with the frickin' Tea Party protests. And I kind of part me saw it at the time being. I realized when I looked at Alex Jones, the only difference between him and the Fox News crowd is that he actually just doesn't like the neocons, whereas they do. But as soon as the neocons aren't out of power, they're going to be bosom buddies from the get-go. I mean, you talk to him about freaking, I don't know, universal healthcare or gun control, those two things we tend to criticize America for. He would be relentlessly against them, and he didn't exactly hide his Bible-bashing tendencies.
No.
So, I mean,
no.
That he accused like the members of the elite or members of people like Bush of being secret Satan worshippers. Like, yeah, that was the problem with George W. Bush, Alex. It was that he wasn't Christian enough. He just didn't God bother enough. That's totally what the problem was, not the opposite way around at all.
That's a uniquely US phenomenon. I don't see Christians go as hard in on the Christianity element as conservatives are concerned, like they do in the States, probably Australia, but UK, not quite as much.
Most politicians are encouraged here to downplay their religious beliefs. In fact, during the Blair years, Alistair Campbell simply said, "We don't do God." So, I mean, yeah, make of that what you will. In fact, several of the leaders of Labour parties and Lib Dems have been atheists. So, I mean, don't. But this could bring us full circle round to Religulous, the documentary, which is 15 over here, and I think is R-rated in America.
Some language and sexual material. It's a pretty mild R in all fairness, but I think it's the themes of the work itself that are probably going to really set some people off. I'll tell you right now. So.
Well, obviously, I mean, that was like in the late 2000s when the whole new atheist movement was still at its peak. The likes of Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris and of course with Bush being, well, at the time he's still being in power, and he was quite evangelical Christian, despite what Alex Jones says, and he was pandering to that religious right in America. Plus, you had the Islamic terrorism around the world and everything. Well, I still do now, but not so much. don't think so anyway. The whole concept of it was, it was quite cool to bash religion, and of course, I think it still is now. But that mentality has fallen by the wayside. Not that I don't think the atheists were wrong or anything, just maybe just doesn't feel quite as edgy as it used to. But back up then, it was quite, or at least felt quite subversive to actually, attack religion and actually say to yourself, you know what? We're not the crazy ones for not believing. You're the crazy ones for believing in this shit. So yeah, I mean, I don't know where I'm going with that, to be honest. I mean, I'm just throwing all that stuff out there and letting whoever listens to that put the pieces together and make what they can out of it.
No, but people who know us know how we're going to approach this subject a little bit. If I was to be an atheist, I probably would be murdered. It's already bad enough. I've got this, I've got that, I've got this, I've got that. But yes, I did see religious out of curiosity, and also because I do find organized religious groups really off the rockers. In fact, when I was in London, I had to see a lot of posters for Franklin Graham, who's the son of Billy Graham, promoting, the gospel of the evangelical church. Was very bizarre. I mean, I don't know a lot of English people who are into that sort of evangelism strain of Christianity. If anything, we're mostly like sort of mainline Protestants or Catholics with the sizable Islamic and Hindu populations.
We are actually a remarkably secular society, for the record. I don't think it's a coincidence that we're one of the few countries that hasn't separated church and state, and of course, become an incredibly secular society because, having it, we're more likely to get forced down our throat from a young age. So we'll probably get a little off topic here. So I mean, any other?
In Religious's case, it does show some stuff that probably would set the alarms off on many people, particularly because he mocks the Jewish faith, the Orthodoxy, considering Bill Maher is Jewish himself, and even references Riz Ahmed.
Doesn't actually go into Judaism. He doesn't actually go into Judaism quite so much because, I mean, he does mock their whole, adoration to the Sabbath and all that stuff. But I mean, where was I going with that? But I mean, yeah, he turns out to be, as always, he's very supportive and defendant of Israel. So there's that kind of, so he kind of falls a bit there. But if we're talking about religious criticism and documentaries, of course, around the same time in the mid to late 2000s, Richard Dawkins was making quite a few. That were on Channel 4, I believe.
I'm not too familiar with his documentaries, but I am familiar with Louis Theroux's series where he mocked Scientology and met with white nationalists in California and stuff.
Right. Well, I think Richard Dawkins' most famous one is in 2006, which same year he released The God Delusion, was The Root of All Evil. What? Root of All Evil? With a question mark at the end. You might want. It might be worth you looking that one up. He's also he also did another one about a year or two afterwards, where he basically took on other, not specifically religious, but other sort of like woo sort of stuff, like psychics, astrology, tarot cards, as well as alternative medicine and all that shit. But yeah, all stuff that's complete bollocks and everything that some people tend to believe in it because they'd rather believe something than just think logically. Critical thinking is hard.
You've got to get an education and have money to do so. That's why the more educated and wealthy you are, the less likely to support nationalism, more sort of sectarian issues. We live in a twisted world, I'll say. Yes, experience-wise for documentaries, some of the ones I have seen in the cinema, they certainly pay a comparison to what I saw on television or at the house. I mean, taking liberties. I was for a long time. I was a 12A. They got a 15 certificate on DVD release. That was controversial because it satirized and made light of Tony Blair and the surveillance program that existed post 9/11. Even the filmmaker himself got in a bit of trouble with subsequent films that he would do due to tax rebates and finance laws for filmmakers, and I think he was lying or cheating the system, and thus he went to prison only to do a book about his prison experience, and maybe he was a bit opportunist in that respect. But I don't know, I kind of lost myself there for a second. Oh, and we can't even forget about all the documentaries that air on 4 that people say sort of veers towards exploitation. I don't know if sort of reality programs sort of count in this mold, but I've heard a lot of people sort of criticize stuff like Benefit Street and Skint as being poverty porn.
Yeah, very much. Charlie Brooker's made his Charlie Brooker's taking that shit to task. I don't know if you ever watch any of his stuff. Or Charlie Brooker's, is he a documentarian? I don't know what he counts as, actually. You have to be
cultural criticism.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. You got to be careful with documentaries because whoever's making them, they usually have a sort of agenda or an angle and everything, and they may basically frame everything and selectively edit everything to sort of skew your opinion towards the viewpoint they're trying to get across. I mean, they've said this about Michael Moore and everything, and yeah, okay, I guess that's kind of true. Although I do agree with the point Michael Moore is trying to get across. But again, you mentioned an inconvenient truth earlier on with Al Gore talking about climate change, and he even did a second one, a sequel to it. But of course, I don't know if you've heard this guy called Martin Durkin.
Not too familiar with his name. Please do refresh me.
Well, he's one of these pricks, and I'm just yeah, he's a director of some sort. He's a very, very right wing, but in 2007 he did a documentary called The Great Global Warming Swindle, which basically tried to just promote climate denialism. And obviously you can imagine he's taking everything out of context. He's misconstruing everything because, well, of course he is. He's promoting an unscientific view that is, well, unscientific. I mean, you must know that. We must all know that by now, because there is no beat around the bush. Climate change, man-made climate change, is an objective fact. If people think it's not, then they're just fucking idiots. Obviously, he tried to do that, but to the lesser informed or the lesser educated, he may have convinced them. He may have just convinced these people that that climate change is some great big communist left-wing conspiracy for whatever reason.
Agenda 21. If you ever hear people go on about that, chances are they're probably one of those climate deniers. I, on the other hand, I'm sort of in between. I believe the theory, but I'm also skeptical about the very people who say we got to stop climate change, we got to stop global warming, because some of them maybe do it so they can themselves look like, oh, I'm better than you. I mean, in all fairness, Paris Climate Accords, not much could else be done. Even during a pandemic, where people weren't driving their cars and stuff as much, CO2 levels and temperatures have been rising much faster than anyone could imagine, to where we have some of the hottest years on record, and even bizarre weather patterns, including like Hurricane Hillary, which is affecting near where my American side of the family lives, does unsettle me to quite a degree. And then also there was, a documentary that's called Planet of the Humans, which was produced by Michael Moore, weirdly enough, which was a climate change documentary that actually was pointing the finger at what I like to call the greenwashers. And this includes one of our big targets we always like to point out here, Elon Musk, with his Tesla. I know it's fashionable to seem like, oh, because I drive a Tesla, I'm better than you. I'm saving the planet, and it looks so lush. But have you ever thought about what type of materials they were making in order to build those cars? And also
Well,
working conditions as well, because I heard he had to subcontract through prisons just to get the parts for Teslas. That's just fucked up.
yeah, well, he's got his freaking emerald mine, and he's involved in all that Bitcoin shit, and the what is it, factories or the plants or whatever, the data farmers or whatever it is, are used to actually mine Bitcoin, what it is, produce far more, leave a far greater carbon footprint than, well, pretty much anything. But that's, yeah, I mean, what of it? I mean, Elon Musk is a dick. Hopefully the rest of the world has eventually seen that. But what, I wonder. Yeah, and of course, two other documentaries I've seen about religion, going back to religion, were of course done by Hardeep Singh Collier and Stuart Lee. But that's like, I just only remember that. But yeah, I was just saying, you've got to be careful with documentaries because, well, for reasons I've just said, I mean, they can be essentially be used as propaganda.
Oh no, easily. There's a person now, because we're left wing, we already have made our minds up, but there's a person who's been actually making much more headway than Michael Moore has in recent years, and his name is Dinesh D'Souza, who's made several documentaries like 2016 Obama's America, Hillary's America, Trump Card.
Okay, Hillary's America won the Golden Raspberry for worst worst picture of 2016 or 2017 or one of those two. And of course that reminds me even again, because 2020, the worst picture winner at the Razzies was freaking Mike Lindell's documentary. I can't remember what it was called. I'll look it up while we're talking. But it's one about the 2020 election conspiracy theories.
God bless these people. They're coming back in full force as we speak right now. Now that Trump has sent in information saying election interference, and he shows his mugshot, making him seem like he's a political prisoner. Well, compared to Edward Snowden or Julian Assange, I don't view him as a political prisoner. He knew what he was doing.
Absolute proof. That's what it was called.
Sorry, I'm eating something. Absolute proof.
That's the name of the documentary by Mike Lindell, which claims a Chinese cyber attack flipped the 2020 election. I mean, fucking hell. The Chinese were going to flip the election. If the Chinese were going to flip the election, they probably want to keep Trump in power because then it'll fuck America up more.
Yeah, people love a chaos agent because that way they can get away with certain stuff. I'm sure the war in Ukraine probably would not have happened had some countries not been keeping their eyes on the prize. Also, Putin and Trump are good friends, so I'll let you decide and take that as you will. But yeah, it's pardon me. We don't have sort of a legacy of right-wing documentaries in the UK. We tend to the US left-wing exports, but there's many documentaries about illegal migrants. You always see them.
Dude, I told you about that great. Sorry to interrupt, by the way. I told you about that great global warming swindle by Martin Durkin, and he's also done another one. Beep, bear me a second. Yeah, called Brexit the Movie, which was done in 2016. What else has he done? Brexit the Movie.
Oh yeah, I do remember that movie.
Britain's £1 trillion horror story. Yeah, generally he's a right-wing dick. Well, he hasn't done anything since Brexit the Movie, but he tends to make the documentaries. But I don't think they get shown quite across America, quite across the world, just like the American ones do.
No, I doubt it really. I mean, if anything, the right-wing documentaries that are making sort of headways
are the ones that usually tend to air on Talk TV, GB News. You know, they have like Jacob Rees-Mogg or Nigel Farage sort of spitballing their thoughts here and there. Everything now and more is viral these days. You have to keep running times at least 45 minutes or less. This is where sort of TV companies like France 24 and DW, Deutsche Welle, are coming into play because they can promote the message.
Well, that's probably, well, that could be true, yeah. And I mean, I guess if a documentary promotes a message that a certain firm wants to hear, I mean, they're more likely to promote it as such. Whereas if it goes against what the firm wants to hear, they may try and bury it.
I mean, Fahrenheit 9/11 got into trouble with Disney because Miramax was owned by Disney at the time. They had to release it independently off the record, I think connecting with IFC Films, just so it could even try to get through that or Lionsgate, because the evil Harvey Weinstein was told you can't distribute this. Even though he's a horrible man, he did somehow try to petition for lower ratings for all these cult movies like Philomena, Jersey Girl, Clerks, and Bully. Zack and Miri as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting a tangent.
Yeah, sorry, I haven't seen Bully, so I can't talk much about it. Yeah. Trying to think.
I can speak also on, like I said, with Walter Bashir. I know I've talked about Flea a fair few times. That's a animated documentary, but I'm a little bit unsettled as to why it is 12A, because they say images of real dead bodies and infrequent sexual threat. Now, the sexual threat bit, we don't see anything. And also, the most that the soldiers are saying is, she's a looker, and they, close the van on our refugee lead character. And he says, that's the most horrible experience I've felt in my life, one of my most horrible experiences I've had to witness. In some level, and then also the dead bodies images weren't the sort of thing that was out of the ordinary. You could still see them on sort of evening news. So I don't know exactly policy-wise for BBC and 4, where they air coverage of war and shows dead bodies and dead animals and children. I presume they blur it out or sort of freeze frame before impact shots occur. You can inform me on this.
Well, hold on a second. I'm probably a bit. Which film did you say it was again?
Flea.
Oh, I've not seen that.
All right. Well, it was just me saying the policy on when they show documentaries or news programs, they sometimes will blur out depictions of dead bodies and children and animals on the street. I don't know if that is uniform for all newscasters. I know it's a fair bit of it on BBC and CBS. But I know you don't really watch network news. You usually just watch the viral stuff, like Richard Kuklinski or David Patman will say something that's more commentary. That's not really documentaries per se.
Well, to an extent. Well, kind of, yeah. I mean, I was just suddenly remembered. I think they did a film based on Walking with Dinosaurs, but I don't think it was actually a documentary film as it was, because it was probably named after the TV series Walking with Dinosaurs, which, as you can imagine, I watched, and its sequels, Walking with Beasts and Walking with Cavemen and whatnot.
Actually, I do remember that one. They never really played it in my school, but I always remember the DVDs and stuff, because I honestly thought, wow, the BBC has a budget like that? It caught me by surprise. Considering there's a lot of sort of photorealistic CG in it. And you also like dinosaurs because of Jurassic Park and that sort of thing.
Even those dinosaurs?
Oh, well, Actually, now thinking about it, one of my favorite docu-series of all time is Anthony Bourdain and Tribe. Anthony Bourdain has never really been released officially in the UK. I've had to mostly watch it at times I've been in the US or on YouTube and stuff. But Tribe is an interesting one because that's got a 15 certificate. But there's so much nudity in it. You'll be thinking yourself, I feel a bit dirty watching this. But in all fairness, it's natural nudity of tribal groups showing, their penises and gourds, or they're buff naked, but they're spearing for rhinos or warthogs and hogs on the safari and savannah. So, in all fairness, you probably could get away with that 12 on the basis of its educational merit. I know people tend to be quite funny about nudity in general, but tribal nudity is one of those few areas, as well as painting nudity, like you see on The Birth of Venus by Botticelli. People generally don't squirm as much. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think tribal nudity people tend to give a bit of a bit of leeway towards it regarding it because of the context and I think it's because of other people getting naked. People just don't think too much about it. But that's all I can give to that. Really, I've just remembered. Do you have Netflix, Mark?
I don't really. I usually just watch stuff on YouTube these days.
There's quite a few documentaries on Netflix, and there are two documentaries I watched recently, both hosted by Peter Dinklage, were the How to Become a Tyrant or Have a Sex with a Tyrant playbook, and the follow-up is How to Become a Successful Cult Leader. Cult Leader playbook, and I'm just going to. Sorry, this is not very professional.
I'll let it pass, given how grumpy I am.
All right, How to Become a Tyrant, and its follow-up is How to Become a Cult Leader, and both they only have 6 episodes for each of these series, and basically this gives you these insight. I think both ones have been rated 15, or at least Netflix's algorithm has given them those ratings, and it's just first one just shows you how individual tyrants have just consolidated their power and quashed opposition and everything. And a sequel, it's even worse because you just see how these cult leaders have just brainwashed people, and just once they've got into a cult, oh boy, you don't leave, and they just strip their acolytes of their individuality and punish them if they step out of line. And it is disturbing. It's just you also just left there thinking, what is the fucking ego on these people to just want to start a cult? So that makes you. If you do get Netflix, I would recommend checking them out. Quite eye-opening. They do seem to be quite trustworthy as well. And then another one I watched was this docu series about the fundamentalist Church of Latter-day Saints.
Oh dear. Mormons.
Yeah.
Utah.
Yeah.
Well, there actually a documentary weird enough about them. It was called Clean Flicks, where they would censor popular movies to make it appealing and suitable for LDS viewers. And they got into copyright and legal issues as a result of this. But I thought it was a funny documentary the first time I saw it. It is in the same sort of vein as This Film Is Not Yet Made and Censor, and all those BBFC ones about Last Days of the Board and Dear Censor, which I could go on for hours about. But you were saying?
The documentary is called Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey, and basically it talks about its the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Fucking hell, no wonder it just comes out as Mormons. And its leader Warren S. Jeffs, and it's just about what he was getting up to once he took over their little compound, which does make you think of David Koresh, another one who's had a few documentaries made about. And oh my god, it is so fucking sick how he just like takes people's wives from them and starts humping them. And of course,
Oh,
when they finally arrested him and raided his room and found these recordings of him just having, well, I mean, okay, content warning. I'm going to be talking about some pretty fucked up shit here. How he's basically having sex with these young girls, probably as young as 12, maybe. And it's like, oh my god, they brought the hammer down then. But yeah, I mean, it's a good documentary, and it, unlike most documentaries, like say like the ones made by Michael Moore, it does come in quite informative and less biased. I mean, obviously it's like speaking. Obviously it's condemning what it does, but it does it from more a matter of fact point of view rather than trying to get through a point, as it were. It couldn't be accused of propaganda, is what I'm saying.
no, there's many documentaries that are like that. They generally be quite popular with its audience. Like Making a Murderer is one I can think of that I sort of just cross-party appeal. This compares something like Fahrenheit 9/11 or Trump Card. Take that as you will. Not too familiar with Netflix's sets of true crime series and documentaries. That's a bit of a minefield for me, because that's a subgenre of its own that I don't know a great deal about, but they're very popular with the audiences, particularly Making a Murderer and what's that Tiger King one? I know that's more comedy, but what?
Well, I only watched the first one, to be honest. I didn't really bother watching the rest of it. Yeah, I can't believe I forgot about that one. But no,
Yeah,
I never
is
really.
it a comedy or something?
It's just more informative, but it's done in a kind of comedic manner. But like I say, I can't really comment because I've only watched like the first episode.
Okay, alright, no worries.
None taken.
But yeah, documentaries can be a little bit of a buggity bear, at least for networks and studios are concerned. They're more or less the sort of thing that hoity-toity academic types would typically watch, but now it's become a little bit more mainstream with all forms of social classes. I know. Why is my brain not working? Oh wait, yes, of course. I don't know if you read box office statistics, but the most popular documentaries over recent years are the ones that aren't very political to begin with, anyways. Like Free Solo, Ruth Bader Ginsburg or RBG, and Three Identical Strangers and Won't You Be My Neighbor, which is about like a public access TV host that hosts a kids show. Got a 12A for some reason, even though it's based on a children's TV show presenter, which I just thought was bizarre. Well, the Ruth Bader Ginsburg movie was PG, so.
Oh, if you want to know more about that, LDS one was rated 18. Probably for the themes of sexual assault.
Well, I guess it's so explicit in terms of the dialogue and references to those sort of traumatic experiences. Yes, it may seem a bit bizarre, but you can get an 18 certificate based on sort of verbal discussions alone. It's how you get the word cunt an 18 if you say it too many times. Or I think that's the Noah from Climax. I got an 18. That the verbal references to sex were quite frank. It was R-rated in the States, but go on.
Oh, sorry. I was going to talk about another Netflix documentary. This one is about a Branch Davidians. It's called Waco: American Apocalypse.
That one I'm familiar with to some extent. Well, Boards of Canada, one of my favorite bands, did reference that nasty cult bring. That's the whole Heaven's Gate thing, Jonestown. Oy.
He was featured in that how to be a successful cult leader, one I talked about with Peter Dinklage. So yeah, they are quite interesting, these documentaries, and they're certainly not anywhere near as biased as ones I've been in the past have been. And of that, you do sort of get a sort of vague insight into what's been going on, and it can unsettle you. Let's not lie about it. But well, again, don't know where I'm going with that, but it's just food for thought.
Oh no, it's all right there. Even I'm a bit lost for words myself. That's because documentaries are sort of an open minefield in many ways. We've included some reality TV shows in this department as well, but there is overlap. I mean, Nanook of the North, which was one of the first documentaries ever made, was reportedly to have been staged, but made to masquerade itself as looking as if it's like a documentary. And then let's not talk about movies like Walter Bashir and Flea, which are animated films that use documentary footage and techniques to where the lines become a bit blurry. But in all fairness, it is one of my favorite genres. It's just not something I openly discuss as much. But anyone who's curious about my favorite documentary is probably Last Days at the Board. And this film's not yet rated, which obviously, considering this podcast, is nothing out of the ordinary. I can quote those movies or docs like it was nothing. I don't know for you, it's probably a little different.
Well, I mean, the only documentary.
The story of Anvil.
I watched that once. I never really cared much for it. And yes, I've seen a few documentaries regarding to metal. Most notably, there was a 2006 documentary, Metal: A Headbanger's Journey, made by Sam Dunn, who's made a few other documentaries regarding the subject. I've watched that. I've probably watched it more than twice now, I think, maybe 3 times. Like I say, the documentary I'm going to probably watch most is going to be Bowling for Columbine, even though I've only haven't watched that in so long. But I could almost just memorize the top of off the top of my head. I mean, especially his interview with Charlton Heston at the end, and his interview of Marilyn Manson earlier on. Yeah, among countless other things. While I did sort of enjoy it when I was a kid, I always found it a bit of an eye opener, because I remember him basically saying, "Why do we have so many gun violence? I mean, don't they play violent video games in Japan? Don't they watch the same violent movies in France?" Because I remember growing up, people saying, "God, these violent movies, they'll make you violent and everything." It's like, oh, apparently they don't. And of course, yeah, that was always stupid. Always thought that was a stupid idea. I mean, stupid concept. Every time they have a mass shooting in America, they say, "Oh, it's a violent video games," and it's like, we play them all over the world, yet we don't have this much shootings. I think we all know why. But again, getting off topic.
No, but Emmanuel Macron, the French president, said one of those things like, "It will cause people to be violent," and this is in context with the L protests against police violence and brutality, which caught me by surprise because the French don't seem to have the kind of hang-ups about sex and violence like you see in the US and the UK. But I'm guessing changing demographics, and also because he's a neoliberal, closet right-wing, despite what some people might have you believe, he's had to change his tune just so he stays in power or stay relevant. Which I just think is sad, really. Surprised to hear that a French president would say such a thing like that.
Yeah, it is a bit. Does seem a little silly and everything.
I mean, Ségolène Royal, she was a presidential candidate. She even criticized anime for making kids more aggressive and blamed it on the media box.
That's just sad. Especially when it's sad when it's coming from, like, the freaking, someone from her side of the political spectrum. You tend to expect it from the right wingers, like Mary Whitehouse. It's like, half the reason someone would vote for the freaking left wingers is because they don't think like this.
I'm afraid, Ralph Nader, you might have to group in along with the Puritans on this respect, because he thinks Xboxes are electronic child molesters. I'll let you sit on that.
Well, I'll sit on it. I'll make sure I have a cushion to make it more comfy, but I'll sit in it. Yeah, just trying to trying to think. Oh, that's something. I mean, I haven't actually seen this documentary before. Have you heard of like the Decline of Western Civilization series?
Only in name. Is
Well,
it
I haven't
like
watched
from
it.
like Neil Ferguson?
I can't remember the exact name of who made them. I don't think it was a bloke who made them though. Hang on, I'll just put a look at
That sounds
Decline
like something
of West.
Sounds like something like Lucy Worsley, who does those documentaries about the monarchy and 50th century England.
It's made by a woman called Penelope Spheris.
I'm sure I've heard of her. She's done Wayne's World and Black Sheep. Not the New Zealand Black Sheep, it was an American movie with Chris Farley.
Bugger me, so she did. And she did. Oh, right, yeah, oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, yeah, not being New Zealand. She did Wayne's World. Yeah, first Wayne's World. Suburbia as well. And I don't know if it's no, but she did 3 films in this series called The Decline of Western Civilization, which were just well, I mean, basically they were just having a right go at sort of music and everything. But of course, whilst the first one, and the third one are about punk music. The second one, which is in '88, was talking about heavy metal, or at least the '80s heavy metal, mostly looking at glam stuff, and just well, as you can imagine, it doesn't portray it in a very flattering lifestyle. And of course, one of the there was one episode. There was one episode scene where one person. Oh yeah, that was it. Chris Holmes from the band Wasp is interviewed in a swimming pool with his mother at his side. He stumbles with the interview, proclaims a full-blown alcoholic and a piece of crap while pouring what appears to be vodka over himself. Basically, it looks like he's trying to down a bottle of vodka in one go, and he's obviously holding the bottle up like at arm's length and just trying to pour it into his mouth, but mostly, well, I think half it goes in his mouth.
Okay.
Yeah, according to Wikipedia article in the Influence and Legacy, it has been claimed, most notably in VH1 documentaries Heavy: The Story of Metal, that the film was partially responsible for the death of glam metal and the subsequent rise of thrash metal and grunge during the next decade. Thrash metal was big during the 80s, less than the 90s, but hey ho, never mind. The suggestion in the documentary is that fans, disgusted by the scenes of excess, decided to turn elsewhere. A similar claim was made by Dave Mustaine, a guy from Megadeth, in his autobiography and in the book Hellbent for Leather by British author Seb Hunter. Well, they make these claims, doesn't mean they're not shit. Shit. But yeah, I'm guessing this woman is probably one of these completely evangelical. Do you know what do I know about her? Doesn't say much about her, whether or not she's some hardcore right-wing Christian or anything. But she certainly has a sort. You get a sort of Mary Whitehouse or Phyllis Schlafly vibes off of her.
It certainly sounds like from what you're telling me.
Well, yeah. Well, anytime anyone comes up with these sort of criticisms of metal and what metal's about, you know, red flags go off in your head. But of course, we've moved on since then, and unfortunately, to the chagrin of most of its fan base, heavy metal has lost a lot of its shock value.
I mean, with all the horror films that use satanic imagery and stuff, I doubt anyone's going to be crying foul of, oh no, they had 666 on the album cover. Man. If anything, the thing that they're targeting right now is if it's woke ideology, or if someone's got a wet ass pussy, which
Yeah, that has come back a bit full throttle. Because one thing I said, we always thought that post 9/11 world kind of changed the ire of all those sort of right wing shits because they were more concerned about Islamic terrorism or, you know, or just radical Islam in general. And of course, all the countercultural types kind of lost their edge and whatnot. I mean, that's just me talking. Although the rise of alt-right types, the rise of Ron DeSantis types have probably brought this radical, this schlafly stuff back. But I'm just spitballing there. I've got no fucking idea. I'm not a sociologist.
It unsettles me. I think with Trump's arrest and this jail photo that he did, I'm worried about civil war. I'm worried it's going to come on U.S. shores again because their esteemed leader is now feeling like he's persecuted.
Yeah, he did surrender. Well, that's the thing, though. He surrendered to the authorities, actually. So it's like, and pretty much all his freaking inner circle have pretty much done the same thing. So
that is true, but I think
really
they did it as a photo op to make him look like he was a victim.
Yeah, but they were saying, like, to all those who talk about civil war, all your leaders have just surrendered in Atlanta. How much longer do you want to do this? So I mean, I don't think it's going to go very far, in all fairness. Although one might ask how much longer the United States is going to stay that united.
I would be happy if it was disunited. Why would you want to make deals with your enemy when they want to stab you in the back so you can stab back on theirs? But that's my paranoia. That's just me sort of playing into culture war. So I am part of the problem, as is he. So yeah. But I will say it looks like I've kind of ran my course here with this podcast, but I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to discuss the kind of titles I could discuss. I did forget to mention about G.G. Allen. He was that fucked up punk Flash guy who just was yelling and smashing cans and throwing shit and pissing on the audience.
Yeah,
so real
G.G. Allen. He really did push things to its nth degree. I mean, he was trying to do everything just to rock the boat.
And here's the funny thing: the documentary that he was most known for was directed by the same guy who done The Joker and The Hangover. So 360 in terms of mentally ill people thinking I'm a showman.
Well, yeah. Well, maybe. Maybe you do have. I suppose you might have some showman abilities in your Mark. I mean.
Yes, I do.
Oh well.
You've seen my YouTube. Sometimes I'll do weird noises and impersonations. Or stand in the BBFC building with a weird cheeky grin. Anyways,
well,
I'll stop. It's nice having you on board, Rob.
Oh, I was glad to be here. Just same time next weekend, I think, or whenever.
All right then. Not so short the subject will do, but we'll let the audience be surprised.